Hello, I'm Tom Bowen, and we're here on September 8th for a adult education committee meeting, really, and program as well. And the topic is Quaker readings. And we're beginning to map out how we might have as adult education in Quakerhood, Quaker readings that we can read and study and talk about more than that. And I wanted to tell everybody that I picked up, as I said earlier, informally, I picked up Susanna Dodson's cue to look at the book and get it, The Quaker Reader by Jessamine West, which I got on quakerbooks.org sent to me. Now, Susanna had talked about Jessamine West, who I was really unfamiliar with. She's, of course, written, she lived for, I researched a little about her, and I learned first that she was born in 1902, and she died in 1984. So she's long departed the scene. She's best known, of course, because she wrote the book Friendly Persuasion, which became a Quaker movie, a Quaker themed movie that was renowned. And also she that book was also adapted for a television production. So, but she wrote 20 to 25 books, including a lot of books about Quakerism. She was born in Indiana to Quaker longstanding Quaker family. And incidentally, I can't resist saying what I learned, and that is that she was the second cousin to Richard Nixon, because they had a common set of great-grandparents who were the Millhouses. And of course, you'll remember that that's Richard Nixon's first name. And she actually, although born in Indiana, she grew up in California in Yorba Linda, and she attended a Sunday school taught by Richard Nixon's father. But I can't resist saying that, although it seems like a real anomaly. But when she wrote the Quaker Reader, she wrote a wonderful introduction in this book of what Quakerism is all about and how it developed. And I would like at some point, not necessarily tonight, to read some of it out loud, because it's really insightful about the time in which George Fox was preaching and spreading his word. It's extremely insightful. But in creating this compendium, she she divides, she goes through history, really, and she divides the history of Quakerism into various periods. And she includes excerpts of a wide range of Quakers and some non-Quakers writing about Quakers. For example, she has a section in her part 2 in which she says the Quakers established, and of course she starts off with John Woolman. And then she has various other non-Quakers commenting on what the Quakers seem to be about, including Voltaire and Thomas Carlyle. And then she refers to several other Quakers and quotes them. For example, John Greenleaf Whittier, which we all knew as school children as an American poet and writer. And what I learned about John Greenleaf Whittier is that he made John Woolman famous among Quakers. That John Greenleaf Whittier lived about 100 years after John Woolman, but and John Greenleaf Whittier lived at the time of and wrote at the time of the Civil War in the 1860s. Instead of the 1750s and 60s like John Woolman was writing. But John Greenleaf Whittier, and I think I pointed this out in my talk on John Woolman, really popularized John Woolman and made him known, although 100 years later. And it's for really to thanks in thanking John Greenleaf Whittier that we turn so readily to John Woolman for our Quaker study. So Jessamine West covers all of these peoples because as Susanna has mentioned before, she lists under what she calls the convictions Rufus Jones that we've heard from Susanna before with excerpts from Rufus Jones, I think from this book. And John Arminio, I'm happy to see you present. And I'm talking about a really good compendium of all of various Quaker writers and thinkers, the Quaker Reader, which I got from quakerbooks.org. And in the past, Susanna has read from this excerpts about Rufus Jones. There, of course, are excerpts of writings from William Penn, of course, and others such as Robert Barclay and John Woolman himself. and as I mentioned earlier, she quotes also or has a section on John Greenleaf Whittier, and also on other birthright Quakers. For example, Carolyn Fox, who wrote "Hooray for Quakerism." From Memories of Old Friends. And that is about a 5-page excerpt. She also quotes about Quakerism from Walt Whitman. So I recommend that we use this book among other books. And I owe all my thanks to Susanna, who made us all aware of this book and who has used it in past meeting or two. And I think that we're well advised to get this book and to make use of it. And I know that Susanna has mentioned earlier this evening to me that she has assembled a couple of books. And let me turn to Susanna now for that.
Okay, I have a whole pile of books here. This is an interesting, maybe you can't see it. It's called A Quaker Approach to the Bible from Henry Cadbury, the Ward Lecture of 1953. That, and I have 2 copies of that. So I can send it anyone. It came from, they discarded it from the yearly meeting library. But it's, you know, if anyone wants to know what the leading scholar, the leading Quaker scholar of the 20th century thought about the Bible, this is it.
Who is it?
Henry Cadbury.
Oh, Henry Cadbury.
Okay, because there were 2 of them. There was Henry Cadbury was older, and then no, Rufus Jones was older than Henry Cadbury. That's right. And they were related somehow, and they were both professors at Haverford, I think. Yeah, Tom Williams knows, was more familiar with that. But anyway, they were academics, both of them, and they wrote an enormous amount. I knew his daughter, Henry Cadbury's daughter. In fact, when
let me ask you a question about something you said, and that is the yearly meeting library. Is that accessible?
Well, it's entirely volunteer, and there's no support from Philadelphia Yearly Meeting, and I'm saying that on record. But it's, as I said, it's entirely voluntary. It's open for a few hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and it's on the upper level of what was the women's meeting room.
In the central meeting house?
That's right. And they rent out the bottom part to bands and choirs. And so you sit in the library, it's not ideal, but they do have a lot of books, and people keep dying and dumping all their books on them, which is something you should never do, because librarians, it's not fair to librarians to have to sort through all the books. And they end up giving a whole lot away all the time, because they just can't deal with it. And I'm sure that's what happened.
But it doesn't have regular hours, does it? Or
no,
does it?
You just have to, you have to call them and see if anyone's going to be there.
I see.
It is beautiful. I mean, it really is beautiful if there's no band practicing.
You're freezing up, I think.
Oh, really? Is that better? What's going on? Okay.
You're freezing, Susanna.
Okay, I don't know.
Tom, she's not freezing on my machine. I think it might be at your end.
Okay. Yeah, because I can't see anything wrong here. Okay, but that's another book. There's another person called True Blood. So this is another book. True Blood. The Quaker Cross, A Tale of the Old Bone House. If you've ever been to Flushing Meeting, that's a really nice book here. So I mean, I can send anyone any of these books if they'd like to read it and talk about it. The Quaker Persuasion, which is this is by William Wistar Comfort. 1966. I don't know. No, I mean this is an old book. I guess it was republished. He wrote it in about 1940s. And here we are, the faith and practice of the Quakers. And this is very nice because, I mean, Rufus Jones wrote an enormous amount. I think he wrote a book a year. And everything is great. But
you're freezing again. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, but when he and I understand that when he had at meeting for worship, he thought that 20 minutes was just when you warmed up. He'd give very long messages, and he had plenty to say, and he obviously had a terrific sense of humor. If you've read anything, even from the Quaker reader, you can see that he had a good sense of humor. He wasn't boring. This is The Quaker Approach by John Kavanagh, American Friends Service Committee. Gandhi, this I got from Gandhi was a very nice story about Gandhi. Apparently he became nonviolent because he read something in South Africa that was written by Leo Tolstoy, and it was translated into some other language that wasn't Russian. And Gandhi based his nonviolent approach on what he learned from Count Leo Tolstoy. It's amazing, isn't it? Martin Luther. Now that's clearly not Quaker, but on the other hand, Quakers couldn't have started without Martin Luther or without the Reformation and the turning, the bifurcation of Christianity into Catholicism and Protestantism. Now, this guy here was also a theologian, Thomas R. Kelly. I know he wrote quite a bit, and this is A Testament of Devotion. Now, this is worth its weight in gold. This is the Pendle Hill pamphlets, and they from 1934 to 1994. So, yeah. So if you have a topic that you want discussed, I can look through this and see if there was a pamphlet written on it in between those years. Now you can see it's pretty thick, and there's plenty of information. Pendle Hill has, and they're still publishing pamphlets. I understand that John Gallery recently had a pamphlet published there. So, if you want to write a pamphlet, you can talk to them. Maybe they'll publish it. But you can also access them, which is great. I don't know how many of them are in print. That would have to be, you'd have to sort of talk to them. But it's really worthwhile talking to them at Pendle Hill. They're very helpful. Okay, this is Gospel According to Mark. I don't know if anyone's interested. Quakers Find a Way by Charles Woodman. This is a novel. It's not a novel. It's a history. Lamb's Warrior by Isaac Hopper. And this is very nice. This is after Rufus Jones died. Now, I understand when American Friends Service Committee was given the Nobel Prize for Peace in 1948, 49, Rufus was either sick or he was dying, so he didn't go, but Henry Cadbury did. And there's a lovely story that Henry Cadbury pulled his formal suit out of the donations bin at American Friends Service Committee. Very nice. But the Nobel Peace Prize was awarded for the work the American Friends Service Committee did in the Second World War, which was feeding refugees, and they continued doing that. They continued doing that in Palestine, as we heard. And American Friends Service Committee is in Palestine at the moment, feeding people. And they've got like 3 or 4 trucks and all sorts of things. But this book actually is really nice because it was written by Margaret Hope Bacon. Now, I don't have any books by. This is the only book I have by her. But she wrote a lot. Margaret Hope Bacon. I need to find something of hers. And this actually is very interesting too. American Quakers Today, and it explains the different types of Quakers that there are. Friends United Meeting, and they're the ones that are interacting with Brahmana School, as we learned. Friends General Conference, which of course is based in Philadelphia. Evangelical Friends Alliance, I don't know anything about them, or Conservative Friends, Unaffiliated Friends Meetings, and there's various other groups. And so the other thing I was doing too was I was looking through Gutenberg Press, and I just put in Quaker, gutenbergpress.org, free books, and I found 2 books by William Penn. One was of a sermon he gave in England. One was No Cross, No Crown, and there was another book too that he wrote. Rufus Jones books. There's 2 or 3 of Rufus Jones books in Gutenberg Press. But another book that I really would like to stress that's really, really good, and it's also on Gutenberg Press, is by Caroline Amelia Stephen. And she talks, it's a lovely book, and she just talks about how Quakers were worshiping. Now, she was the aunt of Virginia Stephen, who became Virginia Woolf. And when Caroline Amelia Stephen died, she left all her money to Virginia Woolf. And Virginia Woolf bought a room of her own and was able to write all her books. I love the way people are connected. Now, Virginia Woolf certainly wasn't a Quaker, but Amelia, it's just a lovely book, and that's something else that could do with an hour discussion with readings from that as well. Now, I downloaded a whole lot of books, and I printed them into PDFs so that there's none of this EPUB business. So you can read them easily, and I can send that to people who'd be interested in talking about them, reading about them, reading excerpts. So, okay.
Tom, you're muted.
Back to you, Tom.
Tom, you're muted.
Okay. The Quaker Reader has several writings by Carolyn Stephen. The Feeding Upon the Bread of Life, No Other Religion Than the Will of God, Not Quakerism But Truth. There's all writings by Carolyn Stephen that are included in this Quaker Reader.
Okay, something else too in that reader is Thomas Elwood. And the whole book by Thomas Elwood is, I downloaded from Gutenberg. Thomas Elwood was, he was there in the time of George Fox. And it's a fascinating story. And there's an excerpt in the Quaker Reader about Thomas Elwood, you know, how he wore a hat and people knew immediately he'd turned and he was a Quaker now. And, you know, so it's a lovely, lovely story. But his entire book, he wrote it. And that's what's very nice too about the Gutenberg press. Someone called Cyrus Pringle wrote, you have these, and of course, John Woolman's journal. So you have these contemporary descriptions. Now, what is interesting to me is I'd like to know what happened. Why are Quakers so focused on education? And when did this happen? I mean, this is very, very interesting, especially since, you know, we've been sending money to the two Quaker schools in the Middle East. And it's like, should we be doing more? Should we be opening up more Quaker schools? I'd like to understand why we're so focused on education. And it seems to me that Quakerism is more similar to Judaism than anything else, because Judaism, right from the start, has been all about education with a book. And that I find is absolutely fascinating.
Well, a rather tedious book that I came across was about Owen Biddle's great grandparents in London before they emigrated to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And they were Quakers in the early and middle 1600s in London, in a certain neighborhood of London. And actually, I saw another reference today. They met for meeting for worship in the early days in what was called Devonshire House, which was a section of the Duke of Devonshire's townhouse and the neighborhood. And the William and Sarah Biddle encountered William Penn and others, and they started talking about emigrating to the U.S. Or to New Jersey and Pennsylvania. And at that time, in the mid 1600s, according to this book, they placed a very high level on education.
Yeah. Wow.
In the 1600s.
Yeah, that's great. Oh, another book too that's on Gutenberg is, of course, Robert Barclay. Robert Barclay's book, which was the first book, the first scholarly book about Quakers, from what I understand.
Well, there's a
Maybe it
read.
wasn't. Maybe it wasn't. Maybe the others.
Yeah, there's a reading in here of Thomas Robert Barclay. Turn thy mind to the light. And so there's an excerpt in here. I really think I'm so glad that Susanna brought my attention to this book, because it's a real encyclopedia of Quakerism.
It's interesting. I found that I first started going to meeting in 1991, my protest over the Iraq War. And I came across the Quaker Reader in 1998. And I was in Germany for like 6 weeks. And I was just and it was like, my gosh, I didn't know any of this. It's like, I didn't know what a Quaker was. I felt after reading that I hadn't known what a Quaker was before, that I was just going through the motions. And it was very, very exciting. It is. I mean, it's well, they republished it. It was published.
Yes.
Yeah, it was published, I think in 1980, was it? But Pendle Hill republished it.
It's a Pendle Hill publication, and it was first published in 1962.
Oh, okay, 62.
And then in 1992 republished.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, and I know they've still got plenty of copies. You know, I think I bought 2 and I've given mine away. Well, one's in Puerto Rico. I gave
Well, I will be glad to buy some more and supply them to people. Yeah. And incidentally, in the after the marvelous introduction, part 1 is the beginnings. England in the 17th century, in which she talks about a lot of the background. And then the message of George Fox, the first publishers of truth, William Penn, the convinced, a lot of William Penn, and Robert Barclay. So anyway.
So
what else?
What will we do first? Okay, because I want to have this readings. My suggestion, which is that we can have readings the second Sunday of every month, because that way that doesn't put too much pressure on us. And I mean, I can do some reading, you can do some reading, but we can hopefully we can get other people to do some readings too. But on
the Sunday evening.
Yeah, the second Sunday of every month. So that would be the 6th of October, the whatever it is in November. And we could just, we could have a religious education meeting before that and try and figure out what we're going to be reading. But Cindy, do you have any ideas? We haven't heard from you. If we can, yeah, what? I mean, you just like to go through the Quaker Reader. I mean, it sounds like. Maybe
I do.
Yeah, so maybe that would be the best thing. So, I mean, like, for example, the chapter on Thomas Elwood, I found his whole book. So, you know, like if you could read from, or someone else could, oh.
Oh, Cynthia says the host won't allow her to unmute.
That is weird. Why would that be?
I don't know.
That is weird. Okay, let's see if that'll work. Anyway, yeah, so that could work then. So we could have a plan then, just to go through the Quaker Reader bit by bit. And
well, that's my recommendation, but other people may have other ideas. I don't know.
Does anyone else have any ideas? There you go. Good idea.
Does anybody want me to get more copies and furnish them to them? I can.
You don't have one, Ray? Okay, we need to get one for you. Yeah.
Oh, he does have it.
He does have it. There you go. You see. Oh, that's great. You know, at some
Well, I like your idea. Fine, Susanna. The second Sunday evening of every month.
Okay, good. Okay, let's have that as a plan.
Yeah. Okay.
And you'd like to start from the beginning with the.
Well, I would like to discuss a little bit and maybe even read a little bit from the introduction, her really good introduction.
So that should be the first one. Just read the introduction. Now, another thing too is at the moment we're on Zoom, but you have the option of having a video or an audio. Now, I listen to a lot of podcasts to audio. So, I mean, when you're reading it, I mean, you don't need the video. We can save it as audio so that people can listen to it as a podcast. It's easy to do. I can do that. Yeah.
Susanna, when you save it, you get both.
Right, exactly.
MP3 and MP4.
Exactly. Yeah. So I just post the MP3, which is, you know, I do have a website, peacescientist.org. And I've done that before. I've posted audio files there before. And in fact, I can even edit audio files. It's very easy to do. Yeah, so. Okay, since we can't hear you, Cindy, is there something you'd like to add? I'm sorry about that. I don't know what's going on here. That's weird. Okay. So, what else?
Well, maybe that's enough. So we'll meet on the second Sunday in. Okay. We'll meet on the second Sunday evening of October next.
Yes. Now, should we have a religious education meeting first, or maybe we could do it by email, just sort of, yeah.
Well, we should. What should? Well, I don't know. Just thinking out loud. I'm used to Zoom.
No, I mean, we can do it on Zoom. I'm just saying that the way we can save it. We'll do it on Zoom, but we can save it. We can save it so that people can watch or just listen on, and it depends on how much. When I'm in Puerto Rico, I don't have a whole lot of data. So
yeah,
listening is easier. And also when you're listening, you can do other things at the same time.
I know.
When I'm cleaning or working on other things, I like to listen to, well, I usually listen to the BBC Sounds, which is excellent.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, well, that's good too. Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, well, I think it's just